name is Laura, and I'm Kickstarter's design and tech editor. And before I was at Kickstarter, I spent 15 years as a journalist covering the design and tech and culture beat for publications like Vice and The Guardian and Surface. And I've come to Kickstarter to help creators launch projects and fulfill their dreams of being entrepreneurs. So first off, I'm assuming most of you are familiar with Kickstarter, but if you aren't, Kickstarter is a platform that helps bring creative projects to life. Kickstarter was formed in 2009, in some ways as a result of the recession, as a way for people to take control over their careers, to become entrepreneurs, and to help bring these projects to life when traditional avenues of funding weren't necessarily available. So this number is somewhat, I don't want to say misleading, but these are the projects that we have funded, but as soon as it goes live, it will change because every hour, every day, there are new projects launching. At this moment, we have over 7 billion pledged to projects, and these are in the hands of creators. And it's a number that we're very proud of in our 15th year. We have over 22 million backers. And again, there are backers in every continent you can ever imagine. Pledging to a range of categories, as I mentioned earlier, everything from dance to crafts to photography to design and tech. People from nearly every country on earth have backed a Kickstarter project. When I'm telling people about launching, I say factor into your shipping that someone in Antarctica might pledge, because we've had people in Antarctica pledge. That being said, you can put limits on where you ship to. So getting back to it, I work on the design and tech team at Kickstarter. We are the largest, most engaged community that are working with, again, such a broad range of creators. It also encompasses fashion. It encompasses people who are trying to get brick and mortar design locations off the ground, but it also is some of the biggest projects in the tech space that you can imagine. And these are just a few of the stats. Again, with every hour, things change, but these are some of the most up to date. So how does Kickstarter help creators? And this is something that we are all very passionate about on the outreach team. Kickstarter is a great alternative to some of the traditional worlds where you would have to go to a manufacturer and order thousands of something to have it come to life and put funding out on the table before you even know that there is a demand. So Kickstarter is a great place to do small runs, fund product development before you commit to mass wholesale orders, to do real world R&D. When you put something live on Kickstarter, you can tell in real time how people are responding to it, what their comments are, if there's a color that they would prefer. That is in many ways invaluable as a way of seeing what your audience wants. And that brings us to demonstrating market need. Before you make this massive commitment and strike it on your own, you can see exactly what consumers, what backers are looking for. And the last point is something that I think about a lot as a former journalist, is Kickstarter is one of the only places on the internet outside of your blog or your personal website where you can tell your story in your own words and you can control your narrative. You can say, this is what I'm about. This is how I want to present myself. This is what I offer. And you get to have that really valuable real estate on the internet and come across millions of people that, may be looking for something just like what you're offering. So I'm going to bring to some projects to help inspire you. This first one is by Girl in Space Club, which is very near and dear to my heart. Sabrina Thompson, who's pictured here, is a NASA scientist by day, and at night she is a fashion designer. Working with astronauts, she realized that there were no spacesuits specifically for women's bodies. And if you don't believe me, you can Google it. In 2019, NASA had to cancel a mission to the moon, or not the moon, in space, because there was nothing for the women to wear. So, she was met with a certain amount of, common sense knowledge. Do they really need these suits? And she said, what if I tried to do something on my own? And she was part of an incubator and started working on a suit, and we were put in touch. And she said, do you think people would really help me do this? Is this something they'd be passionate about? And I said, I definitely feel like there is a need for this. So she created a Kickstarter, and it was to fund the first leg of her journey, because it can cost up to $300,000 to do a working prototype for these. But she also just wanted to get the word out that this was needed, and she was able to raise 80K plus to fund the first leg of her journey. But more than that, she also got press from space.com, CNBC. She really got the message out that this was something that people needed. So we love to talk about Sabrina. The next one is Peak Design, which is one of our biggest creators of all time. They have created over 11 campaigns, raised 31 million, but more than anything, they were able to really get their multi-million-dollar company off the ground using Kickstarter, and they regularly come back to us for campaigns. So we love Peak Design as well. Artiphone is another creator. They were able to use Kickstarter to harness their community alongside their product. So it meant that it wasn't just launching a product into the vast space of the internet. They were able to really build a community around it. And that eventually also led to in real life events. It was a community building exercise for them. And we like to say that about Kickstarter. You're not just asking for money, you're asking people to be part of your community. So this is another project that we love. It's by Oscar Lermit, and it is to build a working prototype of essentially a 3D model of the moon, which you may think already existed. It did not, but it was using topographical maps and all sorts of complex technologies. That he had one working prototype, but in order to scale up, he really needed additional funding, and he was able to use Kickstarter to test the market, get pre-orders so that he could really bring this to life without considerable debt to himself. And the next project, again, this is the last project before I go into how to build your own project, is the nutshell coolers. And I love to use this example because it was 2 grad students at Stanford that went to the Philippines for a class on sort of building radically accessible design. And so they went and they basically lived and studied among the farmers of the Philippines to see how they could make their lives easier. They noticed that bringing fish from the sea back to the market, a lot of them were spoiling. So they went, how can we create a cooler? They also noticed that there was an abundance of coconuts left over from the Philippines coconut trade, and that had incredible insulating properties. So they thought, what if we combine the two? And so they worked and created a prototype for their master's class, which is nutshell coolers, that was able to keep those fish fresh, but also provide a new sustainable prototype for what maybe the future of cooling could be. So this was a project that they did in school that was highly conceptual, and they were able to scale up. And today they have a full business kickstarted by Kickstarter. So now that I've talked about all those inspiring campaigns, how are you going to do your campaign? So there's a lot that goes into a successful campaign. I won't lie. One of our creators once said 75% of a successful campaign is before you even launch. And I love to use that statistic ever since, because it's not just you have a great idea, you throw it up on Kickstarter, and then you have a blockbuster. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So once you're starting to think about putting together a Kickstarter, you're going to want to put together a 3 to 4 minute project video if it's something that has a lot of functionality. Let's say you want to create something that has moving parts that you can demonstrate in a video that isn't static. You would like to have a video that really explains how it works. This will go the same for images and copy that share this vision. Again, as a former journalist, when I was an editor looking for pieces to cover, I would look at the quality of the images, whether people can demonstrate their prototypes before I would even consider covering. The same goes for Kickstarters. With rewards, you want to be able to explain what people will get, when they will receive it, how it ties to that master vision. And you also want to think about what kind of media you're going to share and embed. Will there be GIFs? Will you have a press kit? Will you essentially have copy that you'll be able to share on socials? These are just things to start thinking about before, so that you don't have to be in a rush once you've launched. So when you're creating that video, you want to start with a really concise overview. And this is the same for on your page. What does your product do? How are you going to achieve it? And what does it look like when it works properly? And you really want to demonstrate that with good key info throughout the page, great images. You want to just really let people know that this is something that is achievable, because the more you can let backers know your vision is within reality, the more likely they are to take the plunge to back you. So again, that means showing realistic demos. It's not using renderings. It's not using AI. It is really doing those nuts and bolts of saying, this is how that works. even when it can be a little bit less than polished, or you're showing the nitty-gritty of what it is to be a human being making a project. But trust me, backers will love that. The more genuine you can be in your videos, the more you'll be able to engender trust with them. Show the whole user experience. That can mean even once you've taken out this product into the real world, especially if it's an outdoor project, especially if it's something that you will is a bike project that you will need to leave the house for. So show it in those real world situations. And more than anything, show the inspiration and the passion behind your project. People want to see that this is something that is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It isn't, a flash-in-the-pan idea. This is something that you have dreamed about doing, and Kickstarter is helping you bring it to life. So again, what goes into a successful campaign? It's the same with journalism, where it's the old who, what, when, where, why. You want to really think about those before you launch. What sets you apart? Why is this different from everything else that already exists on the marketplace? I like to say, what is your elevator pitch? If you were stuck in an elevator with the investor of your dreams and you had from floor 3 to floor 5 to tell them what you're all about, what would it be? And that should be in the first paragraph of your campaign page, and it should be hopefully in the first part of your video as well. You also want to do why now. We have some creators that launch around specific holidays. World Water Day was one, where it was water saving devices, or maybe this is just something that you feel like the world needs right now. During the pandemic, we had a fair amount of people that, were looking for projects that, they could imagine using in their home because it was unclear, what the future held. So it led to a boom in people trying to do outdoor adventuring, hobbies, all kinds of things. So that's just a why now, but also why Kickstarter. It's worth putting a paragraph in there saying, we believe in this community, or we couldn't fund this on our own, or we didn't want to go through traditional avenues. So it's great to kind of also clarify that for yourself, because there are other means. I personally am biased and think you should do Kickstarter, but it has to be a personal decision if you think that it's a fit for you. So again, for that campaign prep, you want to define the campaign's focus. You want to build a list for both marketing purposes and launch purposes. So that can mean, we recommend people have around a 2,000 person list before they launch. That is 2,000 people that will be interested in hearing about your product. That may seem daunting, but really think about who that list could be. It can be everyone from a club that you're into to people who have signed up on your email list at a neighborhood meetup. Because Sabrina Thompson, as I mentioned earlier, the NASA scientist, she would go to local events and get signups for mentoring she was doing, block parties. It can come from anywhere. So try to think outside the box. Next is settling on a goal amount. So that one is one of the questions we get asked the most. There is no golden number. I tell people it is very personal. It is saying, how much would it realistically cost to manufacture something? And how much would that factor into my profit? How much do I need to raise from this Kickstarter to both bring this to life and make it worthwhile to me? I say to not make it so wildly ambitious that it seems unachievable, but not so little that you end up in danger of not being able to fulfill the project or bring your project to life. We have calculators on the website that you can also check as well. That will be able to give you a rough estimate if you put some of the info in. But in general, it is a personal journey to saying, I've gone to the manufacturer, they say I need to raise this much, I need to make X amount. What would I need? Keeping in mind that Kickstarter will take 5% of the final amount that is raised. So factor that in as well. Creating a PR plan that includes journalist outreach. Again, there are people that want to cover what you're doing. It might seem like you're not getting any responses, but there will be some blog, there will be someone out there that is desperate to learn about what you're working on. So kind of come up with that strategy before. When you're building a campaign page, this is something that I tell creators is send them to approvals about 2 weeks to a month before you want to launch, so that you don't end up in a bind. If you're all ready to launch and everyone's expecting a certain date, but you're stuck in sort of that approval where maybe there's something, the straight payment, or maybe something else needs to be clarified. So again, can't emphasize that enough. Just budget that into your time. And then again, then there's the just sort of like you're hyping a party that you're throwing or any event. You want to let people know this is going to happen this day. You may think you're annoying them, but there's no way that they're going to know about this unless you get the word out. And that might also include a pre-launch page, which is a page that can collect emails and other info before you launch so that I will let them know when you launch that you've gone live. So with rewards, I tend to tell creators to keep it simple. Start with 5 to 7 tiers. You can always add more than that, and you start to overwhelm backers, and it can create something of a sort of a shopper paralysis where they're wondering if they're getting the best one. But, keep in mind that a lot of your backers will come in the $1 to $60 range because they support you, or maybe they don't want to make those massive commitments yet. So just really think about those core offerings, but also have those higher tier rewards. And again, this depends on what you're doing. For example, if you're working on a high-tech piece of equipment that many people might think is cool, but they can't necessarily put $300 towards actually owning it, you can have a tote bag, you can have hats, you can have stickers. People can give $5 just because they really believe in it. So just keep that in mind, that just because your project is maybe in those pricier ranges, it doesn't mean that people won't back it. You can also use add-on rewards to help backers customize pledges. These are things that as you're going towards the checkout line, you can add additional sort of fun impulse shopping and extras that they can throw in their cart. And it is a great way to get additional funds. You can also offer limited time or quantity limit rewards, which kind of adds to the excitement of saying, we get an early bird special, or there's only 10 of something, I should pledge now so that I can ensure that I have that deal, that, exclusive rewards just for Kickstarter campaigns. These should be things that, people wouldn't get if they didn't back your Kickstarter. You want to build that sort of excitement that they're really on the ground level working with you to build something. So in terms of live campaigns, we recommend a 30-day campaign. People might do shorter, a little longer. This is a sweet spot. I also like to say that if you have the 30 to 45 day, it increases your odds of if we can help with any sort of promotions. Again, we have thousands of projects that launch regularly, so it can be hard to sometimes raise you for promotions. The longer that you are up, the more likely it is that we can potentially help you in that way. But you also have to do a lot of that work on your own, amplifying your social media posts, reaching out to your community. If you are nervous that you don't have your own community, you can consider paid ads, but it's by no means, mandatory. The basic message is keep audiences engaged and updated. It's not that you just throw it up and then you can kind of forget about it for 30 days, unfortunately. You have to throughout, be doing social media posting, you can do updates internally through Kickstarter that say, we've reached our goal or we're only halfway there. Those really do get people excited. And some little tips on press and outreach. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's finding those people that want what it is that you're offering. So doing targeted outreach is better than just blanketing folks with your message. Is there a journalist at Wired that you've been following for 10 years and they really love this niche that you're in? Now's the perfect time to just say hi. And I know as a former journalist, I didn't love those broad anonymous pitches, but I loved when someone had been following my work for a while and had something interesting that they thought I could share. So this is about building relationships. Even if they don't cover your project, maybe they can become a fan of yours down the line. Maybe it can lead to features 2 years from now. These are sort of relationship building exercises that if you want to be an entrepreneur will benefit you no matter what. And just kind of keeping in mind that you might think your product is the coolest product in the world, but to a journalist, every person in their inbox feels that way. So keeping in mind, is this part of a broader news story? I know, again, when I was an editor and we had big holidays coming up, we would start looking for pitches around then. So if your product tailors to a specific holiday or audience, that can be how you can be part of a broader news story. But the most important thing is to go to your community. They will be a major source of both inspiration and funding. You will meet people through Kickstarter, you will find people through social media, but more than anything, you want to reach out to the people that you've been working with this whole time. So post-campaign, your funds will be delivered about 14 days, depending on your bank. And then you'll be responsible for fulfilling rewards for backers. Some people choose to work with pledge managers or other things like that can help make that process easier if you're working in bulk. But just keep in mind that if you offer 1,000 of something, you will be responsible for delivering 1,000 of something. So just something to note, but keep regular posts. You know, especially during the pandemic, there were supply chain issues, there were stoppages, but people are mostly understanding if there is a delay, as long as you keep them regularly updated. But also update them and just say, we're really happy that you backed us. It's on the way. The first round is coming out. This is an ongoing conversation you're having with your audience. And finally, you know, Kickstarter has been around since 2009, but the last year and a half has seen more changes than we have in years, including the 4 years I've been at Kickstarter. We have come out with a suite of tools to make your life easier, which means effective digital ad campaign strategies. We added images on rewards, which was one of the most asked for products from our backers, which means when people click on one of your awards, they can actually see what it will look like. We've opened up the dashboard and analytics so that you have more control, including conversion API in the pixel, which was something that was asked for years. We have a text editor that allows you to easily break up the campaign page into sections, which is a great tool to take advantage of. We also instituted our Creator Advisory Council, in which we went directly to some of our top creators and said, what are the tools and processes that you would like to see? And using their feedback, we've made a lot of these changes, as well as even more changes we have coming up, including Google Analytics 4, which is another tool that's really worth checking out. But all of these updates are available on our blog, on our website. So if you want to look at these at a more leisurely pace, they are there anytime you need it. And I know I've thrown a ton at everyone, but, you know, again, doing a Kickstarter is fun. It's engaging. I like to tell people that I've worked with everyone from multi-million-dollar companies to my little sister who did her ceramics project through Kickstarter. Kickstarter is for everyone. If you have any issues, please reach out to me. I'd love to help. And with that, I'm going to kick it back to Kay.
Thank you so much, Laura. Yeah, it's always so difficult to condense this stuff into like such the time that we have, considering it's a design and tech masterclass, and that just covers so many things. And so really what we love, Bob, absolutely, we can make sure that you get the presentation. You'll also get this recording sent to your inboxes as well. So that's something that you can kind of refer back to. And like we said, we're doing more of these sessions, but what we'd really love right now is to hear from all of you. Like, drop in the chat, what are you working on? Do you have any questions, things that you're not sure about, or, you know, concerns as well? Like, it's scary putting your work out there, and I think that's one of the biggest things about Kickstarter is we are an open place, everyone can see you're working, and this is a safe place to kind of share that amongst friends.
There are no stupid questions here.
Yeah, exactly. We ask them all the time.
All the time.
And also, just if you want to write out your questions instead of like putting your hand up or whatever, that's also fine. Are there any third-party companies you can use to help with this process?
Sure. Yeah. So because Kickstarter has been around since 2009, there is now a sort of whole ecosystem that is available to help creators with everything from making their videos to paid ads. So we have an experts page on Kickstarter. It hasn't been updated in a while, but it has people that we have vetted. We have been working with an ongoing partnership with Jellup as well. So they're also an agency that helps with amplifying campaigns. But in general, you know, I would say what it is that you want from these parties and then finding one that specializes in it, because there are so many groups out there.
Do you know, I always recommend as well is like having a real think about what you can do yourself, and then really being specific about what the help that you need, because then you're going to get the most out of it. There's there's loads of questions in the chat. This is exciting.
I know.
It's all cool. Jenny has a great question, and Laura, you're going to love this one. I am launching a footwear line and curious if you have suggestions on how to collect color or size in our purchasing tiers.
Sure. So, Jenny, you should email me at lfeinstein@kickstarter.com, because we work with so many shoe projects. But you can build that into the reward, where how a lot of shoe creators do this is you will back a specific style, and then in the pledge fulfillment, you can do the size. You can later do the color, but it really depends on the type of campaign you want to do. But a lot of that can be done towards the checkout section in terms of, do you want one of this? Do you want this color? So that is not a concise answer, but is the truest answer is that it really depends.
And I think that someone else asked, and I think this is kind of tangentially linked, is that someone's asked if we'll offer any support for shipping. Do we plan to add in the works to add a shipping feature in Kickstarter?
So it's something that we've taken into a lot of concern, and it is on our mind. There is no news I have to share at this moment, but it is definitely something that we are working and conceptualizing on. In the meantime, there are agencies that you can work with that are trusted that can do that work for you.
We've been working quite closely with Easy Ship. There's
Easy Ship.
Ship and Pledge Manager to kind of help ease
Yes.
those sorts of questions, and it just helps you have these additional tools that are kind of separate to the platform, but we've integrated a lot more with them, and they're like kind of trusted partners for us.
And there's also, Pledge Box. Again, it's there is a world available to help you out there. And I'll leave my email here again.
Yeah, I'm just popping it in the chat. Sorry.
Oh, you got it.
Oh, I put a dot. Ignore me. I'll delete that. Great. And then Dave Hale had a question. Working on launching a sports training research review newsletter. Is this something that has been previous projects on? Not exactly, but with newsletters. Now, that sounds very tricky to launch on Kickstarter, I would say. So sort of a newsletter community. Is that right? Actually, I can't see you, so
it would really
misrepresenting you, David.
So I'd say campaigns are most successful when there is a physical reward and people can easily wrap their mind around what it is they're funding. I don't want to dissuade you from doing one for a newsletter. We've had people do Kickstarters for their magazines, for festivals. I think it would say, what would the rewards be if they backed this newsletter? Again, I lean heavily on tote bags and hats because it's great. It's cheap to make this merchandise. It gets people involved, but would it mean that they get a year free subscription? Is this a newsletter that you already have running and you have a certain amount of subscribers? Because if you have a newsletter that's active and it has 25,000 subscribers, but you want to build out a new website for it, you can reach out to those people and say, we're doing a Kickstarter. Will you back it? If you do, you could get a year free, you can get this mug, you can get this tote, you can be part of this community. So again, it's getting really creative, but having really concise goals, why you're doing Kickstarter, what it would look like, and having that sort of tangible feeling to it.
Thanks, Laura. That's a great answer. David Stulberg would like to know, is there a reason why a number of successful campaigns price their goals much lower than what it costs to fulfill? I find that a lot of campaigns are in the $9,000 to $13,000 range.
Sure. So they shouldn't be doing one that costs less than fulfilled. It might seem from the outside like that, but it's more that maybe they have wholesale prices and they really only need that amount to get it moving. They've worked with a manufacturer to come up with that number. But if you are setting your goal lower than what you need to fulfill, you're in for a very rocky ride. And Kickstarter also has a policy where if you do not fulfill your project, you cannot launch another. So, you might see lower goals, but that might also be that this creator doesn't want to dissuade people from backing if they make the tier too high. They know they realistically need this amount. 9 to 12 can go a long way, especially if it's for someone who wants to build the first leg of a project and isn't offering that exact item as the reward. So it really is a variable.
Brilliant. Thank you, Laura. And Jeff Jennings would like to know, what are the rules around existing products? How much of a change does there need to be in order for a product to be considered new?
I'd say to be a good actor and also to not receive negative comments, it should be fairly new. You know, we have policies on our website that you can check out in terms of it cannot already exist in the world. You know, you shouldn't just be changing the color and then putting it up. It should be something new because otherwise you will see feedback in the comments of why should I back your Kickstarter when I can just already go buy it here. You want to create also more excitement around it. It'll go farther if it's something that's new, it's exciting, people can be at the ground level of it. That's really the spirit of Kickstarter.
Absolutely. And is it Liza or Lisa? Liza. This is very exciting. I was Hinge's first publicist, and I'm doing your voice. and, now launching a super unique today dating app and looking to make her debut on Kickstarter. That's so cool. We have a great guerrilla PR strategy, but how important is lining up a pipeline of pledges ahead of the campaign going live? Heard it's easier to be featured if we can get 25% committed in the first few days.
So I mean, I think that there's a lot of misinformation on Reddit, on the internet about, how you get featured. I mean, what I tell creators is you will get a bunch of your backings in the first few days and the last few days because excitement is the highest, but it will not affect your algorithm. If you get a Project We Love badge, people search specifically on the site for that. So that is something that may help, but we don't compared to, maybe other crowdfunding platforms, we don't elevate someone just because they've raised the most money or because, they've had the most in the first few days. Most of the projects that are raised are either because people are searching for them or because they might be a fit for the person who's searching or that, have received editorial features or in newsletters or things like that. So I'd say don't try to game any algorithm because it does not exist.
And I think like that's another important thing to think about is Kickstarter is a really human platform. I think which is a very odd thing to say.
No, it's true. There's no
like,
grand robot
there's
calling the
not
shots.
a lot of the things that get selected for newsletters, selected for Project We Love, selected for homepage features and things like that have come because the humans at Kickstarter have seen them and loved them and thought this is a project that really speaks to of us and our community. And I think that's just something really important to note. So a lot of storytelling is just as important for us as it is for your backers.
And that's an important point that I didn't put in the slideshow is you can't pay to have features in Kickstarter. There's no pay to play. Everything that's been Project We Love that's in newsletters is because the staff has collectively decided this is something that exemplifies the best of Kickstarter and we want to highlight it. So, in some ways you can't just pay to be on the front page of Kickstarter. That might be disappointing for other people, but it also engenders trust and support from our backer community is that they know that we're elevating something because we truly believe in it. So that is a point that I want to mention.
Yeah, and I think that actually answers your question as well, Adam, around how to get projects we love. And it's absolutely like all the tips that Laura has given you, if you implement them, make a really well-constructed campaign page, make a product that is doing something different, that makes a difference in the world, show us that you're invested in it as we are, sort of thing. And I think that like really speaks to us. Next question. Okay, so working to launch our second campaign this year in September. That's exciting news. We raised $300,000 in 2019 with a $3,000 budget for ads. For this new product, we want to raise more, so 400 to 500,000.
Yeah.
How much? Sorry, reading and speaking, obviously not my strong point today. For this new product, we want to raise 400 to 500,000. How much more campaigns that raise this amount? How much do campaigns that raise this amount invest in ads? Maybe a percentage of total dollars pledged for reference would be helpful. And what are Kickstarter's partners for performance ads?
So I don't have an exact numbers because again, that is something that is usually worked out with the creator. And if they hire an agency to help them with ads, I would say, you know, if you used an agency last time for this and you were happy with the work that they did, to go back to them and frame this exact question because they might have more up-to-date analytics. You know, it, working in the internet, things change also frequently. You know, what worked in 2019 might not work now. So I think staying as up to date on the natural algorithms of Google and SEO and things like that would be helpful. So you know, again, we have an experts page on Kickstarter.com that you can take a look at if you're curious about branching out from your current agency. We've also worked with Jellup a fair amount, so they're worth looking into. But you know, congratulations on such a big launch in 2019. And I think if you can harness that same energy with what you know now, it seems totally doable to be able to get into the 400 to 500K range. But no promises.
Yeah, that's such good advice, Laura. And I think, you know, you've got your backers there now. Just make sure that from now into September, the people that backed you before feeling the love, that they're primed and ready for this new campaign. Laurie's asked just what qualifies a project we love, and just kind of what we've covered really.
Yeah. And I want to say that again, showing that human element, because we do want to raise on Kickstarter the people that are behind these. You know, the more you can show, even in your video at the end, of just why you're creating this, who you are. We like to say shorthand, a person made this, as opposed to just some sort of faceless corporation who knows where. This is someone who it's their dream to make this come to life. We want to showcase those people. And you don't have to have the most polished campaign. You don't have the most money behind it, but you do have to have the most heart behind it.
Oh, that was lovely, Laura. So Michael's asked a question about prototypes, and I think that's just like, in general, he was asking about raising funds for prototypes, but actually I think that's just an interesting conversation in itself, particularly for design and tech creators.
Okay.
So he's asked, sorry, if we want to raise $300,000 to $500,000 to build a prototype, how much would we need to schedule to spend on community building and Kickstarter up front? Does it necessarily need agencies to be involved to build a big community, and how long does it take?
So again, you know, I don't think that you could spend a monetary amount and know that it will immediately translate to raising a certain amount. Again, this is more of an art form than a science. So again, you know, that is a pretty big goal. But if you think it's possible to do that, it's breaking down, you know, how many units would you have to sell to sort of recoup that. It's tricky because if it costs 500K to build a prototype, you know, and that's just one, and you also do need a working prototype to launch a Kickstarter, it creates issues. But going back to Sabrina Thompson's women's spacesuit, her working prototype, she needed 300K to do, but she knew she wasn't going to necessarily raise all of that through Kickstarter. Is that she was very upfront and said, I want to fund the first leg of this journey, but she offered tangible rewards that people could get back. So she got up to 80K. She laid out all of the different levels you'd need for her to eventually get this made, and said, I'm only at one, these are the rest. But you were still able to get a t-shirt. You were still able to get like a jumpsuit. There were ways that you felt connected, even if you realistically knew this might not become a reality for several years. So there's ways of doing the campaign.
I think
But
it just highlights what you were saying about heart and being honest and true. You know, we there was another project a few years ago that was about funding for a home in space. And so, like, you know, that's not something that they can deliver as a reward. You know, backers are not getting sent a little flat pack house for space, but what they were funding was like the mission to go and test it for 3 months in, I'm gonna say, Arctic, one of them cold places, where they live for 3 months and just proved that people could actually live within this habitat that they had created. And that was very honest. And what they got, I think they did in return for rewards, were the things like video updates, being part of the journey and stuff like that. I think there's some sweet ways that you can bring people along with you. Oh, we've got another question here from Harley Smart. Any tips for creators hoping to release an app for download?
Ooh, so again, apps are tricky. I don't want to dissuade you, but you have to have a very concise campaign of why this app is needed, what people will get. Is, whenever there's not going to be physical rewards, and it's also hard to wrap your brain around what it is you're funding, it gets a little more difficult, but it just means that the rewards have to be really killer, and that the campaign has to really visually present what this app will do, what it'll look like, why people should back it.
Yeah, we had one like the biggest app of all time, and it really came down to the fact that the person running the campaign, whose name will escape me now, had such a great community to start with. Like they really brought that energy with them to the campaign, and I think that really helps. So thinking about building community off platform before you come is another a good way of dealing with that sort of difficult app question. Anyone else got any questions for us while we are here? We have some time left. If there's anything you want to share with us.
Again, there's no stupid questions.
I'm imagining everyone's typing.
Yeah, no, I'm wondering, I'm curious, where everyone is coming from. Are many of you in incubators? Are you, far along in your practices? If anybody is bold enough to tell me a little bit about where they're coming from and what brought them here today, I'd be happy to answer, any questions or help you in that way, because we work with everyone from grad students who want to bring their projects to life to, Antarctic explorers.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting question. So what is the best way to build a community? I think it's the same way as what's the best way to build an Instagram following, or to do anything that requires other people's attention, is to offer a unique point of view, refine what your visual message, what your other messaging is, and just connect with like-minded people. I think about a project a lot that happened during the pandemic, but it was a father who was laid off, but he'd always wanted to work on this project, and he was part of this really thriving parenting community on Facebook. And he wanted to create something that was basically magnetic couch cushions that could be stacked to create homes, to create other things. And he, without having a huge marketing budget, without him being on TV, he appealed to those Facebook communities, those parenting groups, and he raised $1 million. And the local, I think, Minneapolis News came out and interviewed him because he knew his community and he knew that this product would be useful to them. So, are you a bird watcher? Do you go out on the weekends? Do you want to create some sort of bird AI program? Are you someone who really, loves product design? Following other product designers could be a great way, and getting involved in those conversations, going to meetups. There are ways of doing this both in real life and also on the web now. Everything is so connected.
Oh, thanks. Oh, it's all going so fast. Colin, for your sharing your campaign here, and yeah, I think like so sorry, Laura. Colin shared his campaign there to say we have launched 6 successful campaigns and currently have a project that we just launched. It's a limited edition, especially for gamers, and we're finding it a little slow and wanted to tap the gamer community. So I'm assuming that's not a community that you've worked with before. Is that right? Obviously, it's difficult for you to answer that question, but yeah. Sorry, Laura. That's half a question to you.
Wait, so the question is, how can I get?
Yeah, how can you move? I guess attract
Yeah,
different communities following Kickstarter.
I mean, there is the way of going to an agency and saying, can we up our paid ads? And then there's just sometimes what I say to some of my creators that I think have an amazing message, but it's not hitting. It's just get on the phone. a friend of mine recently launched a documentary about wolves, and she had reached a plateau point, and I said, what about reaching out to wolf organizations and seeing if they'll share on their social media about conservation groups? And she hadn't really thought about that, thinking outside the box in a grassroots way that doesn't require even more money, and just saying, maybe the Smithsonian would think this was cool, or this person would retweet it. It's about really, getting out the word, and also being so dedicated to your project that doing something like this, you kind of can fight back some of the shyness or tentativeness, because you know that your project is so great. You want to get the word out and say, I'm willing to email all these strangers and see if any of them will lead to something.
Yeah, and I think that answers Ted's question about marketing tips for people who aren't fluent in the latest social media. It's not about being like the next social media manager for a big brand. It's about understanding who your audience is, isn't it, Laura? Really, it's about focusing in on that niche and finding where they are. And that might be in person, it might be on Instagram, it might be in a Reddit forum. It's just about really finding your audience.
And there's also, Lori, it was so kind of you to say that you're willing to join people's networks, but the people on this chat are your network as well as other Kickstarter founders that, see what you're doing and see the challenges and will support you. And you should all kind of support each other, where maybe you're not working on the same kinds of things, but the Kickstarter community and the crowdfunding community is very generous. That I think if you said, would you mind sharing this with your community? I know you're working on your own stuff. It would mean a lot to me. I think you'd find that there's a lot more people that want to help you than you realize.
Laurie, I don't think we'll be able to share the attendee list, but like that just makes us think, like, what more can we do? Keep coming back, and then as we work out,
Yeah.
so we were quite new to doing these webinars, so we will work out how to build that community after. I love
Yeah,
that.
and we have plenty of things that are on our agenda to really bridge that gap between backers and us and the community. So definitely stay tuned to this space. Kay is doing amazing things with these webinars, but we do really want to have more of these forums where all of you can talk to each other. And again, any sort of groups that you're a part of, don't be shy about saying, I'm working on this. Would you give it a look? Would you support?
Great, thank you, Laura. Simon's asked, we currently trade as a company specializing in cast iron radiators and are looking to use a Kickstarter to launch a new cookware brand. Oh, exciting. Can you suggest any tips on getting people to buy into funding the first full production run when the main company already turns over a significant amount of revenue?
So if I'm understanding that question is, you have a fully thriving company, but you want to try something new, which I think is a great thing for Kickstarter. And we welcome that. Is, the great thing about Kickstarter is you can do those limited runs, you can test things out, you can get more experimental, and it won't affect your bottom line. We have creators that have their own e-commerce sites that have been coming back to us for 6+ years, like the watchmakers Zarek or LaFleur, who currently have a bag on Kickstarter, but have their own pop-ups and their own stores. So I would look at Kickstarter as more of a way to test out the market of, we want to do something that's ambitious. Are you willing to try this out? And you get to have that answer in real time. Maybe people's, your community likes what you're doing before. Maybe they would love to see you branch out. I don't know if any people here are Jenny's ice cream fans. She is a vegan ice cream maker, and she has a Kickstarter right now that's live, where she really wanted to do protein bars. And even though she runs a multi-million-dollar company and has done these amazing talks, she wanted to try something new. So she did her own sort of diffusion line to see, is this something that there's a market for? So I think phrasing it that way and saying, you could put on your social media and go, we're trying something new. Do you want to get this limited edition pot? Do you want to try that? And you will only know if you try it out, if it's going to be successful.
Thank you very much. That's a really insightful answer.
My pleasure.
That was exciting, Simon. No one's ever spoken before.
I know.
We didn't know what to do for a second.
Well, my apologies for putting you on the spot.
Oh no, it's great. This is what we're here for. And yeah, definitely. I think all of this is such good feedback for us because it helps us understand where the gaps are in things that we want, that people need help with, and that we can provide some resources for. And speaking to that, there are loads of really useful resources on Kickstarter, and we're actually working to improve all these at the moment. But what I'll do is I'll drop some links into the chat that are useful, but I'll also put them into an email that you'll have the recording for this session and those links that you can kind of refer back to. And as I mentioned, we will be doing these sessions monthly with a different focus each month. So next month is on publishing, so maybe not relevant for everyone here, although the tactics do apply. You know, we do see that, you know, it's about audience building. You know, it might be a different audience, but it's still the same kind of tactics. And then the month after that, we're doing one about top 10 tips for outreach, which might answer quite a lot of the questions here if that fits into your timeline. So I'll share some details about that next week as well, so you can sign up if that's of interest. But we've just got a couple of minutes left if anyone has any burning questions that they want to get off their chest right now. And if not, we'll wrap up.
Yes. And again, I left my email in the chat. Please, you know, even if I can't answer your question, there's most likely someone at Kickstarter that can answer your question. And we want people to know that we're here to help. That it is nerve-wracking and terrifying to launch a project. We never forget that, but it doesn't have to be quite so nerve-wracking. You have folks like us, like Kay, that can help. We have so many resources on the site. And it's a really exciting thing to do your own thing and put your ideas out in the world and try something new. So you know, I tell everyone that you should try at least one Kickstarter in your life, just for something, just to see what the experience is like.
Thank you so much, Laura. And thank you everyone for your time today. We know your time is precious, so it's always great to spend some time with people. And I look forward to getting in touch with you next week. Thanks, everyone.